Hello there, fellow miniature painters. Come with us this day and let's create some galactic fantasy bases. We will be venturing to an alien planet and explore an abandoned site high in the mountains. The perfect scenario for a sci-fi skirmish narrative. I wanted to build a story for this squad of cosmic guerrilla fighters. They are the insurgent pathfinders designed by our friends at the War Scenery Company. Being such a charismatic group of minis, I felt they needed their own tale. Immediately, I started to imagine them on a mission, probing and scanning an extraterrestrial mountain looking for artifacts. Following this thought, I prepped my working area, collected some quartzitic rocks outside and began testing. Eventually, I came up with this theme, which I think really serves the purpose. So, if you'd like to know how to get this effect, join me and let me guide you through all the steps you need to follow. Start by gathering your basing materials and desired miniatures. This time, with a combination of spaceship corridor bits and some gathered rocks, we will build our main scene. Experiment and plan the layout of your bases for a realistic result. Position the floor panel bits following the same orientation, aligning their continuous features in a way that makes sense. Cluster and align the rock pieces as well, but in a different direction, mimicking the geologic outcrop formation. Place your miniatures on the base, together with the other elements, to help you compose the scene. To glue the bits and rocks, you use super glue. With the layout in place, take each piece in turn and glue it. Note how the alignment of both elements starts to make sense in the big picture. For now, we are just gluing the floor panel part of the bits, but we'll soon get to the crates and boxes as well. For larger base sizes, don't be afraid to feature larger rocky areas. This can be easier to do if you glue some of them together. Remember that the most important aspect is to have fun creating your own special scene. Move on to remove any corner extras of the bits you might have, using some clippers and an X-Acto knife. Time to grab some putty paste and a spatula. Add some dense and high layers with the putty in order to add more height to your earth ground. Immerse one side of the rocks for the effect that they are coming from below the earth, as true geological outcrops. It's easier if you apply this to the side that is closer to the edge of the base, hiding it under the earth. Build a bit of height with the putty against the edges of the rocks, for the feel that the earth would deposit there over time. Dipping the spatula in water can help you have more control when placing the paste, making it less sticky. Between the floor bits, lay the paste to cover their ground edges. This links all the floor together, while also prompting the look of an abandoned site, gradually being taken over by nature. Make sure you clean the edges of each base with your wet fingers, easier now than later. Now let's add the earth texture itself on top of the ground. Cover everything with it, aside from the rocks and bits. Note how the previous step really builds the ground relief and layout of the scene. With the main ground layer done, the bases should be looking something like this and are ready to receive some loose sci-fi crates. Once again, use your miniatures before gluing these elements to examine where to best fix them. Stack them, place them next to each other vertically or horizontally, it's up to you. You can also glue some smaller loose stones to the scene, adding to the effect of a mountainous region where rock debris is abundant. Then, water down some PVA glue and apply a layer over the whole ground area, avoiding the bits and the rocks. With it, let's improve the earth's detail by sprinkling some sand over it. This brings your rocky landscape to a higher level of realism. You can apply more against vertical surfaces and in any lower niches, replicating rock erosion resting in those spots. Adjust the position of the sand grains with the brush, joining and sealing everything together. Give the bases enough time to dry completely. Make sure to remove any extra sand that didn't fix. Time to coat the bases with the brown primer paint. Just after, apply a khaki tone from only one direction and at a lower angle. While they dry, you can go on ahead and prepare your painting gear, since we'll begin to paint this scenario. The first step is to paint the rocks using a mixture of beige and light brown tones. Use a wet palette to mix the paints and get a full range of different shades to work with. Base coat all the rock surfaces using these tones, blending them together. This is a quick method to paint realistic colors on natural elements, such as the rocks. It's alright if a bit of the paint spills to the earth around the stones. Leave the bases to fully dry before moving on to the next step. Prepare a sepia wash paint of choice, as well as a diluted red-brown. Apply the sepia wash over the entire earth and rock's surface, reaching every crevice and border. Immediately after, apply some spots of the red-brown paint, blending both colors. You will end up creating some reddish auras in some parts of the natural ground. Once everything is fully coated, give the wash some time to dry before the following dry brush steps. Dry brush all the ground area with a beige color, followed by a lighter variant of the tone. Our aim is to build up the details of the textures by gradually highlighting higher features, each time with a lighter tone, reaching an almost white dry brush. With the natural ground done, let's focus on the floor panel bits. With a very dark turquoise, base coat all the floor bits, leaving the crates untouched. Use a finer brush for this, to make sure you easily reach the bits with ease without worrying about spilling the paint. Also, make some effort to leave no crevice or edge unpainted. Continue by painting the surfaces again, with a less darkened tone. But this time, paint everything in faster, less careful swoops, just to reach the overall elements and not the lower parts and deeper slots. When dry, let's return to the dry brush method. Do it one more time with a lighter turquoise. Now let's apply a dark blue wash over the entire floor structures, making sure to reach all the crevices and edges of the bits. The wash will darken the shadowy areas of the bits, such as lines and grids, bringing more depth to the visual effect. Once it dries completely, apply the same dry brush again as an all-around highlight. The final tweak for painting the floor panels is to prepare an almost white blue, and with it paint some edge highlights using a small and thin brush. Focus on the side edges and higher details, looking for gaps and sculpted lines on the bits. While doing this, add some irregular lines in some areas, simulating scratches and wear traces on the structures. This will add to the effect that this site has been left abandoned and already bears some noticeable weathering damage. you will start to notice how this makes the scene pop a lot more. We will now apply the same recipe for the crates, but using brown-orange tones. Start by base coating them using a dark orange. Make sure to reach all the surfaces and undersides with a base coat, just like before. We chose an orange tone since it will create an interesting contrast with the blue facility in the end. Applying the same recipe, proceed to dry brush the crates using a stronger orange. Be slightly careful with your swoops so that you don't end up painting more than the crates. Mix the orange with a bit of white to build a lighter and less saturated tone, dry brushing again the higher and the outer areas of the crates. Time for the wash. Spread it over the entire surface of the crates. With the wash still wet, apply some specks of magenta ink on top, blending and intensifying the bits' color. Give it some time to dry. Add a last dry brush using the same color we previously used. You can see how the container's color effect is taking shape. In your wet palette, mix an even whiter tone, something like a very light salmon, and repeat the edge highlighting technique, this time on the crates. Being full of details, each container provides a good canvas to try out this method and to imagine where you want damaged traces. Do this as much as you like, either more or less damaged, the choice is yours. Now, with some colors of your choice, paint the extra details present in the bits, such as cables, tubes, cans, or other hardware that you see fit to differentiate. We went with a mix of vibrant colors to make them stand out. With everything dry, apply white dry pigment over and around the zones with sci-fi bits. This step is vital, since it blends everything together, makes the colors more realistic, and also raises the effect of accumulated dust brought by the natural weathering of the site. Because of this, you can be generous while adding the pigment throughout your scene. The result is immediate. Add some brown or sepia dry pigment in some specific spots to add a noticeable micro-contrast of colors. The painting is practically done. We just need to paint the border black to make the scene stand out even further. Be careful so you don't end up painting the ground. With the painting done, we just need to add some dry mountainous vegetation to our sci-fi scenario. For this, we went with a combination of tufts that can add a feel of an alien rocky steppe. Light brown grass tufts are a good choice for this. Cluster them in groups in some areas where the earth is abundant and slightly closer to the rock formations. You can use PVA glue to fix them with more strength. Near and on top the earth that covers the rocks is a good spot for them. Next, choose some zones to cluster some of the alien turquoise tufts. This time, group them in some spots near and among the floor bits, but where the earth is more present. Remember that you can press the tufts against each other, creating a larger grass area. Their teal color effect will complement the blue of the floor panels. Don't forget to place them directly touching the base's end, improving the realism of your scene's transition. Where the tuft groups join, you can add one or two tufts of the opposite color to blend them together. Notice how this makes the vegetation as a whole more believable. Now let's add the lower, creeping grass that still manages to thrive amidst the rocks. The copper brown is an excellent choice since its color contrasts perfectly with the blue tones. Look for areas near the rocks and the beads to place them, as well as crevices where they can reach, filling empty spaces. The tuft's small height and shape will join everything even further. Don't forget to think about where each base finds itself in this environment. Some may just include one or two tuft types, while others feature an opposite combination. The final touch, some alien fern laser plants. We will just need a few. With superglue, place them in some areas you would like, bearing in mind that they can add a sense of background regarding your model's position. This means you should glue some away from the center areas of the base, positioning them nearer the edges instead. For a larger fern, stack some of the leaf groups together. Another thing you can do is to add a tuft on the center point of the plants, making them look like they are growing out from the grass. This also strengthens the whole lot, since you can dip the tuft in super glue as well. As an extra detail, I like to place some individual leaf groups along the edge of the base, facing the base's center. This gives the impression that more ferns exist in the larger imagined landscape, but are not yet fully visible. 2mm tufts are also useful to reinforce the plant near the borders. And behold, the final result. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and see you at our next video.